You know what's wild? Those people who scream like Ukraine just needs to get a peace deal already. Those people, if they would have just stopped to think for a second what that peace actually is, they would understand that it's not peace at all. But they don't. Hi, I'm Slavie, and this is channel Yarochenko, and you're watching Stars and Tridents. Today, we're going to walk through what a so-called peace deal between Ukraine and Russia could look like. Not in slogans, not in wishful thinking, but in truth. Because sometimes peace can be the most dangerous lie of all. Russia says it wants peace. Putin says he's open to direct negotiations. Sounds reasonable, right? Except on May 11th, 2025, the very same day Putin proposed direct negotiations in Turkey, Russia launched another drone strike across Ukraine. 100 Shahed drones and a swarm of decoys over multiple cities, including Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Odessa. The attacks on civilians intensified since the Trump administration came into picture, trying to moderate a peace deal, and with that, they've been appeasing Putin. This is what we're dealing with, a mad dictator who talks peace and fires missiles in the same breath. Putin didn't offer talks, he offered Ukraine a trap.
Russia launched more than 100 drones at Ukraine in a nighttime attack. The Ukrainian Air Force making that statement earlier today. This comes after the Kremlin rejected an unconditional 30-day ceasefire in the more than 3-year war. There was no response from the Kremlin, although Ukrainian President Zelenskyy has challenged Russia's President Vladimir Putin to meet him for face-to-face peace talks in Turkey.
His demands that Ukraine gives up joining NATO, control over the territories they currently occupy, plus demands for areas they failed to conquer, Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and parts of Zaporozhye and Kherson, and agree to become permanently neutral, which basically means no military alliances, no foreign troops, no long-range defense systems. They want all of Ukraine, and neutrality that invites the next invasion helps with their imperial ambitions. Now, here's something people rarely talk about. Even if Putin wanted peace, he can't afford it. Literally. Russia's economy right now is built for war. It's running on arms contracts, sanctioned black markets, and fear. If the war ends, the house of cards falls. No war, no power, no war, no Putin.
Russia has pivoted to a wartime economy in which defense spending shot up some 40% last year. An unprecedentedly low unemployment rate is tied to the war effort. Hundreds of thousands of Russian men have been killed or wounded, leading to a severe labor shortage that has sent wages soaring. That, in turn, has driven inflation to 9.5% last year, with the central bank compelled to hike interest rates to 21% in a bid to control an overheating economy.
That's why he keeps stalling. That's why every peace proposal is a delay tactic. To buy time, to rearm, to keep the blood money flowing. And Trump? At first, he believed he could negotiate with Putin by giving him what he wanted. Not so long ago, his administration floated a so-called peace plan that would hand over Crimea and all currently occupied territories to Russia. But appeasement doesn't stop a dictator. It emboldens him. Instead of ending the war, it signaled permission. And Putin responded the way mass murderers always do, by escalating, with more strikes, more civilian targets, more bodies buried under rubble. Now that Trump has been humiliated by Putin over and over again, peace through strength should be back in the picture. Putin says he wants peace, but on May 11th, the same day he proposed direct negotiations in Istanbul, he rejected a simple ask: a 30-day ceasefire. Ukraine and its allies said, "Prove that you're serious. Pause the strikes." Putin said no.
All of you know that this week we had a real chance to take important steps toward ending this war if only Putin had not been afraid to come to Turkey. I was ready for a direct meeting with Putin, whether in Ankara or in Istanbul, and not just for a meeting, but to resolve all the important issues to my mind. But he didn't agree to anything.
French President Emmanuel Macron said it clearly. Putin is looking for a way out, but he still wants to buy time. And that's exactly what his so-called offer was. Talks without preconditions, which really means walk in, surrender everything, and call it peace. Trump posted that Ukraine should agree to talks immediately. He even floated showing up in Istanbul to help end the war. But then, shocker, Putin didn't show up. Didn't stop the bombings, didn't offer anything. And then something shifted. Trump's team pulled back. Now they're talking sanctions, military pressure, economic chokeholds. Senator Lindsey Graham is pushing for devastating consequences if Putin keeps stalling. He backed a Senate bill proposing massive sanctions and 500% tariffs on any country still buying Russian oil, gas, or aluminum. He said, if Russia refuses peace talks, their economy and their partners should pay for it. It's not just about arming Ukraine, it's about cutting off the fuel that funds Russia's war machine. Trump hopefully finally, is realizing what Zelenskyy had been saying all along.
Hours ago, President Trump called me to tell me he is, quote, pissed off with Russia's President Putin and threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russia's oil. Quote, if Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and if I think it was Russia's fault, which it might not be, but if I think it was Russia's fault, I am going to put secondary tariffs on all oil coming out of Russia. Mr. Trump said 25% tariffs on Russian oil could happen any moment and told me he plans to speak with President Putin this week. The president told me, quote, I was very angry, pissed off when Putin started getting into Zelensky's credibility and started talking about new leadership in Ukraine.
A madman who calls for peace while bombing children doesn't want peace. He wants submission. And you don't end wars by trusting the butcher who started them. This next part is chess brilliantly played. Zelenskyy didn't dodge the talks. He said, I'll meet Putin personally in Turkey. Let's go. He flipped the script. It was bold, it was public, and it worked because it cornered Putin, caught him off guard.
Я буду в цей четвер, 15 травня, в Туреччині. Я очікую на Путіна в Туреччині. Особисто. І сподіваюся, що Путін цього разу не шукатиме причин, чому він щось не може. Ми готові говорити, щоб закінчити війну. Четвер. Туреччина. Президент Трамп підтримав. Всі лідери підтримують.
The Kremlin even tried to deny offering the meeting in Turkey, saying it was Ukrainian propaganda and political circus. Of course, Putin was a no-show, and he didn't stop the bombings either. Instead, Russia sent a peace delegation led by a guy who once claimed Russians are superior because they have an extra chromosome. I wish I was joking. This is who they sent to negotiate peace. The same fossil who demanded Ukraine disarm in 2022 while Russia was actively invading. You send someone like that when you're not serious about ending the war. You send him when you're trying to stall, to intimidate, and to humiliate.
Я не говорю, що русські не поважають нас. Це і так зрозуміло. Але у нас це дзеркально. Так? Але вони тут. Неповага до Ердогана, неповага до Трампа. Трамп відправляє велику групу людей. Держсекретар Рубіо.
Putin was never serious about peace. He's a coward for not meeting Zelenskyy face-to-face and not even willing to stop bombing civilians for 30 days. That's not diplomacy. That's terror. A mass murder. That's a regime that can't stop killing.
President Zelenskyy, do you have a message for Vladimir Putin?
I'm here. I think this is very clear message.
Real talk. What does a peace deal look like today? If Putin gets his way, Ukraine becomes a buffer state. No NATO, no army, no real independence. Millions trapped under occupation and openly getting genocided. while the world debates what to call it. That's not a hypothetical either. It's already happening in Russian-occupied territories right now. Civilians are tortured in basements for speaking Ukrainian. Children are kidnapped from orphanages and parents. Their names are changed, their identities erased. Some are sent to re-education camps in Russia, where they're taught to reject their homeland, their language, even their families. Some of these children are later sent to the front lines to fight against Ukraine. Let me say that again. Russia is abducting Ukrainian children, then forcing them to fight against their own country. That's not just evil. That's a war crime under Geneva Conventions. It's genocide in real time. Russia is a death cult of monsters. So, when people say, just agree to peace already, what they're really saying is, let Putin finish what he started. Let Ukraine stop defending itself against a genocide. If you watch this far, you already know. Peace without justice isn't peace. It's submission. It's silence. It's genocide under a different name. For peace to win, the Kremlin must lose. For peace to win, the Kremlin must lose. And it will not come from Putin falling on his own. It comes from forcing his hand through strength, through pressure, through Ukraine's firepower.
Припинення вогню забезпечити будь-яка людина з боку Росії, окрім Путіна. І я вважаю, що неприїзд Путіна, знов ігри, це фінальна точка його демонстрації, що вони не готові до закінчення війни. А значить, обіцянки Сполучених Штатів Америки, Європи, лідерів інших країн повинні бути виконані. Інакше ви не змусите і не примусите Росію до кроків, до тієї чи іншого формату деескалації. Значить, будуть санкції.
Putin doesn't survive because he's invincible. He survives because the world still makes it easy for him. Easy to stall, easy to sell oil, easy to kill without consequence. That has to end. And here's how you make him choose peace or collapse under the weight of avoiding peace. Crush the shadow economy. This month, the EU blacklisted over 200 oil tankers smuggling Russian crude. That's just a start. Cut off the energy profits. Cut off the war machine. Flood Ukraine with weapons, not slowly, not conditionally, but relentlessly. Long-range missiles, drones, air defense. Every delay costs lives. Every delivery brings Putin closer to the table. Hit him with tariffs that bleed. Lindsey Graham backed this May 500% tariffs on countries buying Russian gas oil and aluminum. Make Putin toxic to do business with. Outarm, outlast, outpressure. Russia's manpower advantage is bolstered by a growing alliance of authoritarian regimes. North Korea has supplied millions of artillery shells and deployed troops to the front lines. Iran has provided hundreds of ballistic missiles and Shahed drones, along with the technology to produce more within Russia. China contributes critical components, including machine tools and electronics, sustaining Russia's economy. Despite these reinforcements, Russia's military faces significant challenges. Morale is deteriorating, equipment is aging, logistical issues persist. To counter this, NATO and its allies must intensify support for Ukraine, providing advanced weaponry and resources to match and surpass Russia's capabilities. As Zelenskyy recently stated, Putin won't end the war until we all together end him. Back Ukraine like it's your own border, because in a way, it is. Putin breaks Ukraine, he won't stop there. Putin won't fall because we ask him to. He falls when power starts costing more than fear can protect, with the Ukrainian army too strong to ignore. Zelenskyy has shown the world what leadership looks like, calling Putin's bluff, aligning with Trump's demands, and keeping Ukraine's fight alive. Trump, once hopeful about Putin, is hopefully waking up to the truth. Putin's lies block peace. The path forward is clear. Arm Ukraine, tighten sanctions, and push until the Kremlin crumbles. Only then can a just and lasting peace take root. As Zelenskyy said, we want peace, but we didn't start this war. Our people are under attack 24/7.
I have a lot of power, but even feeling strong and have a lot of energy, it doesn't mean that we want to fight all our life, because the price is high, like I said, because the war takes the best of us, the best heroes, the best men, women, children, That's it. But we are not ready to give our freedom to this terrorist Putin. That's it. That's why we are fighting. That's it.
The world must stand with Ukraine, not for war, but for the hope of a future free from Putin's shadow. If you believe that truth matters, subscribe. If you believe that peace without justice is just tyranny, share this video. If you believe in Ukraine, comment Slava Ukraini below. Let the algorithm know what we stand for. I'm Slavie. This is Stars and Tridents on channel Yarochenko, because peace isn't passive and truth doesn't wait. We fight for both. If you want to support this fight, join our channel memberships for daily news updates. Invest in truth, in your future, in freedom. Invest in Ukraine's voice. Donate to channel Yarochenko via Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box or right here on YouTube. Your support fuels the front line of truth. It arms this channel to keep fighting the information war, where narratives are weapons and silence is surrender. Because whoever wins the information battle wins the war. Thank you for watching, supporting, and donating. God bless America and Slava Ukraini.
Mm-hmm.